Hey, good afternoon. My name is Woodfin. I'm Superintendent of Education for Ottawa County Schools. Thank you for tuning in to watch our presentation today on the upcoming tax initiative. Guys, the purpose of today is just to put the information out there, let our families make the best decision that impacts their families the best. And we're just excited to be able to do this in this type of forum. Guys, one thing we've done in all the community meetings as well is we let the participants ask questions, and obviously you can tell with this format we will not script the questions. What you can do if you have questions you want us to address at the very end of the presentation, you can scan this QR code now, or if you're on Facebook or whatever, you can obviously type out the questions and Ms. Thomas will get all those compiled for me at the end. But again, thank you for taking time to come see us, and hopefully today, if you have questions, hopefully we can resolve those questions and give you the information you need to make the best decision for you and your family. All right, so this presentation is the same presentation we have hit in all our communities. We've been to every community, started in Toggleville, then went to Marbury, then Prattville, and finished last week in Billingsley. Really appreciate all the parents and community members that came out. It was really good events, and again, I hope that this one is the same way. The question that I've received the most is, hey, why are you guys asking for an ad valorem increase? You see a document here that you saw last year with our community events as well. When I was hired superintendent in July, one of the first things I did was go and ask a third-party company to come in and do an audit of our finances. That company's name is Rice Advisory. They work hand in hand with the State Department. Again, this is a very reputable company. He did a thorough analysis, and again, I've been putting this letter up for everybody to see. Over here on the big bold letters, I'll read you some things. Again, this is answering the why are we here, and this again was last year where this was done. He said the audit indicates that the district is, quote, currently running on a very tight budget, meaning existing revenues are just enough to cover expenses. In order to increase the operating efficiency of the system, either revenues need to be generated or expenses need to be cut. A growth in revenues would include an increase in ad valorem taxes, and a cut in expenses might include, but not be limited to, a decrease in existing services offered, layoffs, and possibly the closing of schools. So I had a question for him because I was trying to figure out how to build some different buildings and start some capital improvement projects. That's why I was asking, do we qualify for bonds? So I asked him, can we access the bond market? His answer was, yes, Ottawa County can access the bond market. However, he took it a step further and said, should Ottawa County access the bond market? That's where you see the information here. And again, in italics, this is the way he summarized it. An individual could buy a bigger house, resulting in a larger mortgage payment, but then they might not have to, then they might have to cut expenses, such as owning a car, taking vacations, or buying everyday essentials. He said, Mr. Woodfin, that's you guys as a system. He said you could take out more bonds if you needed to. He recommends that we do not unless we have an increase in revenue or we cut our expenses. And he said, you guys are the family that does qualify for a bigger house, but you're just not gonna be able to go out to eat. You're not gonna be able to take a vacation. He said, that's the financial situation of the Ottawa County Schools. So one of the big questions that's been popping up is, well, why now? And again, I just answered that, but I also want to highlight to our families as well. The district over the last few years has done a really good job of using what we call COVID money or ESSER funds to offset some of our costs. Those funds are over with. We've used every dime, so now anything that we spend our money on is going to come out of our three pots of funds that I'll explain in a minute. So the whole flexibility that we had before to be able to use dollars from the federal government for everyday expenses, that flexibility is over now. So you combine that with our current financial situation, guys, all I've been telling everybody is we are literally where we were prior to COVID. I've been in the district all my life. I can tell you this is not something that is new. We have had financial challenges for as long as I've been in this district, and I will defend all previous boards and all previous superintendents. Everybody was doing all they could with the money that they had, okay? All right, so that's a quick recap of why we're here. I'll also want to clear up some confusion regarding the vote itself, okay? So the first thing, the ad valorem tax referendum is part of the constitutional amendment that will be on the November the 5th ballot, okay? All we are trying to do is ask for an increase from 10 mills to 17 mills. Everyone in Autauga County currently pays 10 mills. There was some confusion because there's a whole nother route this vote could have went, but you would have had to quote unquote repay to 3 mills from the 7. That it's just too confusing even for myself. I don't know if I still understand it. Meeting with our local legislature members, this was the cleanest way and the easiest way. Everybody pays 10 mills. If it goes through, we will go to 17 mills for education, okay? Now, if that money is approved, it comes to us. This does not have anything to do with the city of Prattville or the county commission or the town of Pine Level or town of Billingsley or Autauga. This money would be collected countywide, and it would all go into Autauga County Schools local funds, and I'll explain that in just a minute. All right, so a sample ballot. This is what the ballot should look like on November the 5th. I believe this is going to be on the back of the ballot, if I remember right. So if you'll flip over on the back of the ballot, you'll see local amendment 1. It literally states voting yes, voting no, and explains the millage increase. All right, so obviously it's never popular asking people to pay more money. I get it. I'm married with 5 kids myself. The economy is tough. We all know that. So the question is, how would this impact people financially? Huge shout out to our revenue department, Ms. Evans. She's done a great job working with us, giving us some concrete numbers that we've been able to give out to people. So I'm going to go over this in just a second. I'm going to use my own personal house on Northington Road in Prattville. I hope that'll give you some concrete ideas on what we're looking at. For each mill, you gain about $1 million in revenue. So if we're able to increase the millage from 10 to 17, that's going to give us about $7 million per year that we can use locally how we need to, okay? And I'll get to that in a second. The same exemptions including age, disabled status, current use policy for landowners. Guys, none of that was changed. All those still apply. So if that is you or your family right now, that will still be in place. There are no changes there. Literally the only change is we're asking our citizens to go from the state minimum of 10 mills to 17 mills to give us some flexibility. All right, the estimated home value as it compares to the increase. All right, we are estimating that for this ad valorem increase, whether that's tags or property, about a 20% increase, okay? Again, that's from our experts at the revenue department. This chart is what they created, and it's really helped, okay? It's really helped to explain it. Basically, for every $100,000 in home value, you can expect a $70 annual increase. Now, I know some property value statements or your property tax bills are coming in right now. And a lot of you, like myself, you're seeing your property tax was increased a little because the value went up. Here's what I would recommend everyone do. Take that statement that came in and look at the chart and add it up. So here's a concrete example. My house, the property tax value on it, it was going to be $1,028, okay? It's about a $400,000 property assessed value house, okay? So if I go to the chart and I say, okay, I was paying roughly $1,020, my house is a $400,000 house, I follow my value, it's $280. So my property tax, if this passes, I can expect my taxes to go from $1,020 to $1,300, or like I think I said it's $1,028, it would be $1,308. Again, our goal is to be transparent. My goal for today's meeting is just to give you the information, let you have the same access to the information that we do, and then you decide what's best for you and your family. This last bullet right here, to find out what a home is worth in Autauga County, visit the Revenue Department's website. So you can go to the Autauga County Department of Revenue, you can type in your address, it'll give you your value. You then take your value, you find out where you're at on this chart, and that's what you can expect to pay for that. Now the question has come up numerous times in the community meetings, well, that's for houses that you live in. What about property owners? In other words, if you have land that you do not live on. Ms. Evans with the Revenue Department has said numerous times, tell landowners to call me, because it just depends on how you have your land coded. On average, the landowners that have called me back, they're all saying the same thing, that it's about a 20 to 25% increase depending on how they use their land. I'm not saying it's going to be 20. Again, I have no idea on the land side of it because it just depends on how you're using your land. But that's a good round number for you to just safely expect. Again, all the ad valorem side of this, we're expecting about a 20% increase. I'm aware of some of the things that are out there on social media talking about 70% increase. That's patently false. That has no bearing on our campaign whatsoever. Again, full transparency. We've worked hand in hand with the revenue department. Here's the chart on the houses, and again, the other factors, you can expect about a 20 or 25% increase. All right. So the question became, you know, what is your funding right now? There are 138 systems in the state of Alabama. We are currently ranked 128th out of 138 in total funding. If this initiative passes, we will move up to 114th. I do not mean that in a bad way. I want you to see that we're not asking to jump to 30 or 40 or 50. We're hoping to move up just enough to give us the flexibility to be able to hire local teachers so that we can offset some of the issues we have in our schools. Again, if it's approved, it'll bump up to 114th. Again, this slide, again, if you have some questions as we're going, scan that slide, or you can send them to Ms. Thomas. She's watching as well. You can just type your question out, but this will probably be a little easier for you if you just scan that. And again, I'm gonna try to answer everything at the end. If you ask a question that I get stumped on, we'll obviously have your name when you punch it in, and I will get back with you. We've been very meticulous on making sure that any questions we get, we've answered. So that will continue with today as well. All right, the budget per pupil, how's all that factor? Okay, we collect the state minimum of 10 meals per student, or 10 meals. The funding breakdown is we receive 63% of our dollars from the state, 23% of our dollars from local, and 9% from federal funding. Now, quick word on this, and I'm gonna get to it in just a minute. All of us have checking accounts at home, all of us, okay? As you know, you get your money, you put it in the bank, you use that money to pay your expenses. The school system's similar, but it's different as well. We receive funds from 3 different areas: federal government, state government, local municipalities, okay? Any money that comes from the federal government is going to be earmarked on how you have to spend it, okay? I'm going to give you those dollar amounts in a second, but just remember, if they send, say, I don't know, $300,000 and it's coded to homeless students, that is a great program. We're so glad to be able to help our students. But let's say I only need 100,000 of it. In the business world, you would just take what you don't use and you would apply it somewhere else. We cannot do that as a public school, okay? Anything that comes from the federal government that is earmarked a certain way has to be spent in that world. Same thing with state dollars. Everything from the state, there's some, and I'll get to this in a minute with our ATF funds, for the most part, anything that comes from the state literally is how we staff our schools. And I'll explain that in detail in just a minute. The only area that you really have flexibility to spend money how you need to spend it to solve your issues is your local pot. In a minute, I'm going to give you a detailed breakdown of how that works, and you'll see where the issue is for us. All right, on average, the district spends an average of $10,300 per student, an average of $1,750 less than the state average, and nearly $9,000 less than most funded systems. Okay, that's a mouthful. We're 128 out of 138, okay, so we're at the very bottom. Obviously, if you were 70 or 80, you'd be about average. So if the state spends $12,000 per student, or excuse me, if that's the average, then that's what we would be. Because we're at the very bottom, obviously we're going to spend significantly less than the average. That's what that bullet means. We're about $1,750 less than the state average per student. When you talk about your higher funded schools, mainly North Alabama, a lot of your city systems, they're $9,000 more than what we are. And on top of that, you look at where we're at the very bottom, they're basically double where we are. So I get a lot of questions about facilities and schools and a lot of these things. And the answer is we can only do with what we have at the local level. And I'm going to explain that in just a second. All right, our enrollment numbers. I have showed this chart at every community. There's some communities this chart hits a little differently than others. Since I'm talking to all the Talk County, I'm going to explain it with everyone. we are completely reliant upon our enrollment for our state dollars. Our state dollars is how we fund teaching and support staff units, okay? It's no secret. Over the last 10 to 15 years, Autauga County enrollment has been going down. Some students are going to private schools, some families are homeschooling. Before this year, we lost a lot of kids to virtual school. I'm very excited, and I'm gonna point that out in a minute. Like, our virtual school has really taken off, which has protected our teacher jobs in the district. But I'm gonna take each one of these and point out a few things. Number one, Autauga, 250 students, they actually gained about 18 students. Billingsley's at 580, they gained 20. Marbury High School is up 37 kids, Marbury Middle's down 38, Pine Level's up 21. This is very typical for your Marbury Pine Level area. You're gonna see some classes that are larger than others, so you will see some fluctuation. Last year when I gave the same presentation, Marbury Middle's numbers were through the roof, Marbury High Schools were down. Prattville Kindergarten, this is a trend in the city of Prattville that our residents have to understand and listen on. When I was at Prattville High School, we graduated, if I remember right, it was over 2,000 kids, between 2,000 and 2,200, I believe. Now, I'm kind of embarrassed to say how long ago that was in 2000. The whole model in the city of Prattville is designed to have a 2,000 or so student population at Prattville High School. Okay, right now, Prattville High School has 1,771 students. Okay, that is a significant decrease. The more concerning element to that is all the feeder schools leading to Prattville High School are also having declining enrollment every single year. Where the big issue in the city of Prattville is Prattville Kindergarten has usually averaged about 500 students. For the last several years, we have averaged about 400. So you take that number and you work it through the system, and it explains some of the other decreases in enrollment throughout the system. Now, families make decisions, and it's my job to make the best system where people want to come and be a part of. And I hope you see we're making changes and we're trying to do all we can. But I need citizens to understand all across the county. The two rural schools, Autauga and Billingsley, they have smaller enrollment numbers, okay? Billingsley's a little more stable. They have, again, K through 12, they have right at 600 students. Autauga has 250. The only way those schools stay open is we use a lot of federal dollars to keep the schools open. In the city of Prattville, you're running an issue with the dual feeder patterns. That system was designed because there was, at the end game, you had more than 2,000 kids. We don't have that anymore, okay? Over here on the other chart, you're gonna see how we spend money per student. Literally, you take the total amount of money that's sent to the schools, you divide it by the population. Because of the federal money, you're gonna see more money spent on Autauga, about 16,000, a little more than 16,000 per student. Billingsley's right at 11. Everybody else is in that 8 to 10 range, okay? Again, this is because federal dollars go to those two schools, again, because they don't earn enough units based off the state data. And I'm gonna explain that in detail in just a second. All right, local revenue sources, guys, I'm sorry, let me back up. This chart's just showing you the total funding, okay? You have 3 pots of money, like I was explaining a minute ago. Some systems may receive a lot of federal dollars, so they may be at like 30 on the federal rank, but they may not have a lot here. The reason we're at 92 state, 108 local, 101 federal, and then 128 overall is there's not one large pot that offsets the others. We're one of the few districts that at all 3 of the pots, we're on the bottom tier of funding. So obviously, if you're at the bottom tier of funding on all 3 pots of money, you add those pots together, you're naturally gonna be at the bottom. All right, the pie chart to the right. I know it may be kind of hard to see online. This larger portion here is state dollars, okay? That's $69,490,960. Guys, a lot of that, a majority of that is sent to the schools in terms of teacher units and support staff units, okay? The way we hire teachers, the system is this. You collect enrollment data. That data from the year before determines how many units you're going to get. So for example, many of our elementary schools, Billingsley, I know for a fact, Prattville Kindergarten, I had to add a unit. We had some special education numbers that went up this year. We had to add a unit late. when we open the doors at a lot of our elementary schools, we have to add local units because we don't have a way of accounting for the kids that come in late. Okay, the reason for that is this. All the units that are in the schools right now are determined by last year's numbers. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So right now, our enrollment that we have right now does not solve the needs for this year. It is used for the following year to staff your schools. Okay, here's a prime example. I was at Marbury the other night. I just showed you their enrollment. They're up about 40 kids, but their units that were given to them last year was less because their enrollment was down. So Marbury High School opened the year this year short a unit because they lost a teacher unit because we didn't get the enrollment numbers with larger class sizes. Marbury will gain some units this year for next year, but there's no way to adjust and work on the class sizes right now. That's where local dollars, local units come in to help offset that cost. So large percentage of everything comes from the state. About 10% of the money comes from the federal government, and then you see this pie here, basically a quarter of it is local dollars, okay? We run about a $110 million budget. I've seen the comments and people's asked me, that's a lot of money. I agree, it is. What people don't understand is we do not have the flexibility to spend those funds as needed. I'm not going live today to bash charter or private schools. I don't do that. I think both entities will tell you I've tried to help them some when they've had questions. But here's the reality that I need Autauga County residents to understand. Charter schools have more flexibility with how they use their state dollars than public schools do. It's a built-in advantage. I personally don't think it's right. I don't make the rules. They have more flexibility with how they use their state dollars. We do not have that flexibility. Obviously, private schools do not have to rely on state dollars. They're privately funded. They can do what they need to with their money. So when you see things coming like the CHOOSE Act, where we're going to lose funding for students to go to private school or to choose to go to charter schools, when your entire model is funded by enrollment, you can see the issues that may be coming down the road. That's why we're working so hard to improve our schools to keep our enrollment where it is, okay? So the whole point of all that is this. We staff our schools based off state dollars. Systems that have local dollars fund the shortfalls or the large class sizes. They hire teachers through local dollars to offset the problems. We have a very limited amount of capacity to be able to do that, okay? All right, so what this is showing you is our local revenue, okay? 21 million is what we receive basically from tax money, okay? You see property tax, $10,270,060. Sales and use tax, $10 million and some change, other tax, right at $400,000. So, for us to make things happen at the local schools or facilities or local units or you name it, it comes out of our local dollars. But I'm gonna go back and show you this. We've received $69 million from the state. In order to get the $69 million, we have to pay 10 mills of value back to the state, okay? We receive 10 mills in property tax. It don't matter if we have 400 million houses get built over the weekend. The 10 mil value is the 10 mil value. If that number goes up, we still got to send that dollar amount back to the state, okay? So 10 mills comes in, 10 mills goes out. If you had 13 mills, I would get 10 mills in, I could keep 3 mills, send 10 mills back. So that's the exchange. We've done this now for 2 years. You know, I'm gonna show you how we operate with our local dollars. These nice fancy $1 million bills. I'm gonna round up and down on these amounts, but you'll see where I'm getting at, okay? Local revenue is $21 million. Local expenses is $20,941. At the end of the year, this is our current budget. We're expecting to have about $200,000 left to fund any issues that pop up. Here's how we get there. I just told you, we got to give the state back some money. So I've got 21 $1 million bills. The first bullet here, state foundation match, $10,060,060. That's our 10 mil value. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay? So that's gone. It goes to the state. State capital funds match, SPED maintenance of effort. Long story short, to get those dollars from the state, we have to give them some back. Again, it's a good business model. We're going to do it all day long. But you add those two amounts up, one's 439, one's 413, that's about 1. CMP salaries and benefits, 2.3 million. I'm just going to set aside 2. What that means, the CMP salaries and benefits, that's our lunch program, okay? Technically, your lunch component should not show a profit, so to speak. Most years, school systems have what's called pass-through money. That's what that money is. We have to budget in an amount that if they don't make enough money with their lunch program, we have to supplement their salaries and benefits. It comes out of local dollars. Now, 2 years ago, last year, I think we went to spend about $1 million, so that would have been, we budgeted 2.3, but we didn't have to spend as much. This year, we're going to have to send more to CMP. Now, I'll get to that in a minute. That's where some of this yes-no stuff comes in. Their expenses have been a little more. As you know, food prices have went up. They're not making as much money, so we're going to have to send them closer to the 2.3 to get back on track. Career tech match, unfunded pre-K, central office personnel, unfunded ARI or Alabama Reading Initiative, 2.25 million. So again, I'm just going to say 2 million. Maintenance supplies, driver's ed costs, local school transfers, coaching supplements, 1.8 million, so about 2 million. Utilities, 3.6 million. Okay, now the math ain't gonna add up because I was rounding up and down a lot, but you can see I have 4 left. We get to there, that leaves $400,000, and again, you can double check the math. It's really about $200,000. So at the end of our budget, you have 1/5 of one of these bills. Okay, obviously it's hard to get things done when that's all the amount of money you're going to have left. Well, why can't you use state dollars? They're earmarked. Why can't you use federal dollars? They're earmarked. Now, the state did send some funds last year called ATF funds. That's where you see a lot of these projects happening. But it's still earmarked. They say you can use it for this, 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 or this. But it was a broad range. So what you've seen with those funds, you've seen some roofs, we use bond money for roofs. But you've seen flooring getting redone at schools. You've seen a lot of building projects. You see we have some renovations of the gym in Otagoville. We're able to supplement some of that money for other projects. But again, we don't know if we're getting that money every year. We're getting it this year. We've already budgeted it out for all those projects. We don't know if we're getting that money next year, okay? And even things like this, maintenance supplies. The last few years, we've used COVID money for janitorial and some maintenance supplies. Now it's coming out of the general fund where that has not occurred in the last 3 or 4 years. So I was asked at one of the community meetings, well, yeah, but how bad could it really be? As many of you know, I was the athletic director, assistant principal at Prattville High School. And true story, I was over the janitorial staff. Great staff at Prattville High School, they do a great job. I walked into Mr. Dennis's office, who was the principal at the time. I said, hey, I need some more money for toilet paper. Now, this is all before COVID. And I'll never forget, being on the job about a month, he started laughing. He goes, buddy, I don't know how to tell you this, but the money you have in that account is what you have. And I said, well, yeah, but we don't have toilet paper in every restroom. And he was like, well, again, what we have is what we have. So before COVID, I can 100% back up the rumor that's been floating around there. We did have to ration out toilet paper before COVID. That is not a scare tactic. That's legit. That occurred because I was one of the assistant principals having to figure out how to make it happen. I'll do everything in my power to never go back to that. But again, when your funds are tied up with earmarks from the state and federal level, and the only funds you have the flexibility to do things with is local, and then you run a budget where your local funds are down to what we just showed you, that's difficult. So the question then becomes, well, if that's how little money y'all gonna have left, you're gonna have to cut expenses. Exactly, you're dead on the money, and that's where that yes-no thing comes in that I'll explain in just a second. All right, so what are our major barriers, our major issues? All right, first thing is the Talk County Schools is completely reliant upon state funds to cover teaching units. So anytime a school's enrollment changes, the teaching units do as well. All right. In about March, I'll meet with every principal. We will look at their enrollment data for this year, and we will start planning for next year. I'm real proud that we didn't have to cut a lot of units last year, even though we should have. We just figured it out. There was very few cuts that had to be made. That will not be the case at the end of the year if this funding does not go through, because we'll have to get back on budget. In March, I will meet with the principals, and we will set aside, hey, your school gets, I'll use Prattville High School, you get 100 units. Now, you're gonna have to make decisions. Well, but I have 105 now. I understand, you gotta find five to cut because you're only gonna earn 100 next year. Okay, I'm just using that as an example. Other systems do not make those types of cuts. They look at the data and they say, okay, you're only earning 100, but your 8th grade number is really large, so you're still gonna lose a unit, but we're gonna locally fund 4 units for you. That's how schools work across the state that have the funding to do so. So what's the blowback for the principals? It is so hard to grow programs. It's so hard to grow teachers because you never know who you're gonna have to cut because you lose units. True story, I try to relate everything back to what I've experienced in Autauga. I would never trade my experience in Autauga for anything. It's the greatest system in the world. I know I'm biased, this is home, but we do a lot with a little, okay? But at Marbury High School, I lived it. Our enrollment went down, and I had to make a decision to cut 1 or 2 teachers, okay? As I was getting ready to make my cut, I had a coaching change, the person left. So then I had to decide, do I cut art or do I not have girls softball? Guys, I'm not being ugly. I know I'm a former coach, but we're in Central Alabama, okay? And not saying art's not important, because it is. I'm gonna get to that in a second. Obviously, I chose to cut the art program at Marbury High School. It's one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. We had 150 kids that ran through that program. It was a great program. Now, I'm very proud to say the next year I brought it back, and it's going really, really well. But the point of that is, I said when I got in this role, I will do my best to never put a principal in that spot again, because having lived it, that's tough. That's very difficult. Well, why don't some schools have different electives? Again, you're only able to cut non-tenured teachers. So when you lose units, you have to cut the ones that are not tenured. In most instances, that's going to be the new classes that you added or the new programs that you started. That's just the way it's got to be for principals. And that's why you see, I'll say this, that's why you see our academic offerings, especially in the secondary level, they're kind of leveled off. They're kind of stale. I've used that word a couple times. The schools are doing everything they can. We need to be able to give the schools more flexibility to add to their offerings for the classes, and then you wouldn't see a stale offering. You would see a more diverse and robust offering. But again, without those local units, guys, it's not possible, because you're completely reliant upon what you earn from the state, okay? And then if your enrollment goes down from the county, there's no way to adequately and properly distribute those units without somebody taking a cut. If your enrollment for the county goes down, you have to lose units. A good rule of thumb, for every 20 students that walk out the door, that's 1 teacher that's going to get fired at the end of the year. That's just a good rule of thumb. So anyway, that's our major barrier. I've said it every place I've been to. If we don't solve anything else, we have to solve the local unit issue. We have to be able to set some money aside in our budget to accommodate those needs as they pop up. Oh, that ties in the second one. I'm sorry, I kind of jumped ahead. The district only funds the absolute required teacher units due to the lack of local funding, leaving no options. Okay, I just covered that. There's no ability to incentivize employees for going above and beyond, creating motivation to continue investing in students. I'm very proud of the supplement overhaul we did with our fine arts and athletics this past year. I'm going to get into that in a second. But right now on many campuses, teachers are doing SGA, teachers are doing first priority, teachers are department heads, teachers are doing all these extra duties, and we don't have a way of compensating them for it, because again, that comes out of local dollars. So what happens is our teachers go, you know what, I can leave this school, go across the county line, and I'll get a supplement, or I'm not expected to do some of that stuff. We're losing a lot of good teachers, and we've been very fortunate to hire really good teachers back. But guys, if a 20-year veteran walks out and I have to hire a first-year college graduate, we all know there's a price to pay for experience. So that's the dilemma that we're in. We have very little ability to renovate aging facilities. Guys, if the ATF funds didn't come the last 2 years from the state, we wouldn't be doing the projects we're doing. You know, I try to stay off social media quite a bit. I don't do it a whole lot. Kind of embarrassed to tell you I don't know a whole lot about it. I try to stay off of it. But I posted something a while back where I talked about the truth is teachers at Prattville Primary kept swimming pools in their classroom to catch the rainwater. Guys, that's true. Now, we fixed the roof the other day, but that had been going on for several years. Well, why? The district didn't have the funds to fix the roofs. It's nobody's fault. I see it differently now than I've ever seen it. When you get to the end of the year and you're trying to fix as many issues as you can, there's only so much you can do, okay? So renovating facilities is an issue. In the city of Prattville, a lot of the schools were built, well, you take Prattville Primary, it's 100 years old. Prattville Kindergarten, we're getting a new kindergarten school, it's 100 years old. Prattville Intermediate, Elementary, Prattville Junior High, they were all built in the 60s. Prattville High School was built in the 70s. Marbury High School is the newest in the district. It was built in 2010. You know, we have very little ability to renovate, to expand buildings because so much of our money is tied up in other areas. We have $47 million in debt. Now, guys, that's actually not a bad number because about $30 million of it's tied up in the Prattville Kindergarten and buses and things. We've been very fortunate to be able to pay off some of our bonds. I got to give you a huge shout out to Senator Chambliss and Representative Smith and Representative Starnes, Representative Lawrence, and Representative Starnes. They were all instrumental in helping us get a grant that did pay off some of our debt, and I'm very thankful for that. But again, it's hard to pay off debt faster when you don't have a lot of money at the end of the year, okay? All right, so that's some of our barriers. You know, I mentioned declining enrollment at Prattville Kindergarten, Prattville Primary, Prattville Intermediate, Prattville Elementary. The older buildings in town, we're seeing enrollment decline. When we did open enrollment this past year, part of what we did was we asked families to tell us why they wanted to transfer schools. The overwhelming number of families that transferred from that side of town to Daniel Pratt, the families voiced that they wanted to be able to put their kids in one school instead of having to go to several different schools. Guys, I completely understand that. I got 5 kids in the system myself. I understand that dilemma. Well, for whatever reason, we're losing enrollment at a lot of our schools. Prattville Junior High as well, Prattville High School. As the enrollment declines, it ties into our teacher units. It causes big problems. Rapid enrollment growth in Pine Level and Marbury communities. I was out there and they asked me, they said, hey, you know, what you gonna do when they put in new neighborhoods? And guys, I'm embarrassed to tell you, there is no plan. There's no way with our current funding to accommodate the growth that's going on in that community. Now, if it got severely out of hand and we couldn't do something with buildings, you would see district lines redrawn because there's no way to accommodate the growth. What I just said is probably not popular, but I need everybody to understand the reason I'm doing this presentation is I need our people in Autauga County to understand Autauga County has long-term planning issues because we don't know which way to go. If the answer is no, then we will start making those plans long-term. If the answer is yes with the tax referendum, okay, well, we can make some other plans. But we've got to know which direction to go, and that's why November 5th is so critical. I'm not here to ask you to vote yes. I'm not here to ask you to vote no. I'm here to tell people and explain the financial side so that in 26, 27, when we expect a lot of these cuts to occur, our families know, well, you know what? They went around, they told us what was coming, and you know, we made our decision. And again, I firmly believe my job is to carry out the will of the people. So the board feels the same way. We're going to carry out the will of the people. All right, small enrollment numbers at Autauga and Billingsley per grade level, okay? Billingsley fights an issue because they're right there on that cusp. They have about 50 kids or so per grade level. Well, if you're a Billingsley family, you know that some grades may have 60 and you have 2 teachers. So your class sizes are like 30 kids. there's no way for Mr. Griffin to make those changes at Billingsley or some of our other schools with the same dilemma, because they don't earn enough units to get those class sizes down, okay? So our low numbers at Billingsley and Otagoville causes a problem. Otagoville, it's a K through 12 school. There's 250 students there, okay? They have a couple of classes out there, Mr. Ziegler will tell you, there's some classes that are 30 plus. Well, that's caused a problem because as that class grows, that's a large class for somebody to teach. You need to be able to split it off. Well, you can't split it off because what are you going to do the following year? You can't keep adding teachers every grade level. That's a long-term problem. If we had some local units, we could soften that blow a little bit. In the city of Prattville, what I just mentioned out there, same thing here, it's just on a larger scale. They may have 100 students in a grade level and have 4 teachers, when in reality they need 5. What that would do is, with 4 teachers, it's what, 25 a class. With 5 teachers, it's 20 a class. So that's a major issue as well. All right, leads us to this, okay? Guys, I promise you, I'm not trying to scare people. I've heard that many times. I am not standing in front of you and telling you every single thing on the right, on the yes side is going to happen. I'm not telling you everything on the no side is going to happen. This is us trying to give you a detailed analysis and an explanation on what we would like to do, okay? You don't see buildings on this side. I'm not telling you that if we're able to get some more funding and move some things around, if it created enough capital there, you might see some buildings. I don't know. These are our main priorities. I am focusing on our employees and our students. I firmly believe that you have to shore up the employee side and the student side before you can get to the building side. Now, if this funding goes through, and again, we're able to shift some stuff around, you may see some things go through. You very well may. I don't feel comfortable saying that will happen, which is why it's not up here, okay? What will happen? We will solve this local, well, I'm not gonna say solve. We will be able to work on our local unit side, because what I would like to do is hire additional teaching units with local dollars. So what we would do, just like in my budget I just showed you, we would have a line item in that budget where we say, okay, because we have an extra 7 to 8 million here, we're gonna set aside $1 million, $2 million for local units. Each local unit costs about $100,000. I wish our teachers made that. That's salary and benefits. Since you're not getting the money from the state, you have to pay everything. So if we said $1 million and we set it over to the side, that's 10 local units that we could help disperse among the schools to get down class sizes and to soften the blow of declining enrollment. Purchase security enhancements. Guys, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not talking about equipment, I'm talking about people, okay? Boots on the ground make a big difference. We were able to hire extra security officers at Prattville Junior High and Prattville High School. I think both schools and our families would tell you it's made a big difference. The reality though is, especially at our elementary schools, we have some schools that do not have a local security guard. I'm not talking about law enforcement, I'm talking about our people, ACBOE employees. Seeing such a difference that made at Prattville Junior High and Prattville High School, I would like to be able to replicate that across the district. We need more boots on the ground. We need more people there to help our students. We need more people there to help our principals. Create a performance-based employee incentive program tied to state report card data. Okay, I'm not aware of any systems that do that. I'm a big guy on competition. Former coach, I believe competition is how you get to where you want to be. That being said, the governor is pushing through, or the legislature pushed through the Governor's Choose Act. As you know, that will go in full effect in about 1.5 years, 2 years. Well, the reality is families are looking at schools going, that's where I want my child to go. I think we need to be able to take that same mentality with our employees. And by that, I mean this. Set goals for each school that ties into the district's strategic plan, okay? You can go to the website, you can see our strategic plan. Each school has what's called an ASIP, or Continual Improvement Plan. We would set the goals of the school. Hey, your reading proficiency needs to increase from this level to this level. I'm just throwing things out there. Your attendance goes from here to here. Set measurable goals for each school that are relevant to that school and their data. If the school meets those goals, the employees on that campus get a bonus. If the school does not meet those goals, the employees do not get a bonus. It is a true competition. What that would do, in my opinion, is it would, number one, would help us reward our employees who are knocking it out of the park. Number two, it would create competition internally And if our schools in Ottawa County are competing with each other, that will raise the game in Ottawa County, which cause people around us to want to move to Ottawa County if they see how well our schools are doing. The last 2 bullets there, if you had more money, obviously you could renovate buildings quicker, you could reduce debt, you could, in theory, if you could free up enough money, you might could go access the bond market to get some loans for some construction. Again, I'm not willing to say that's going to happen, that's why it's not up there, but it is a possibility. Over here on the other side, closed county and city schools. Guys, a lot of heat has come from that. Guys, this is home. I don't want to close a school. I don't want to close one school. But this is a business. We're in the business of educating students. Ottawa County families need to understand there's a reason I showed the entire graphic with everybody's enrollment and explained that. If we're continually seeing small enrollment numbers in the county areas, okay, but also seeing declining enrollment in the city of Prattville, the 15 school model cannot continue. There's no way to justify that. Now, if the enrollment level's off, okay, and we quit losing and we just kind of stay where we're at, that's perfect. I'm not gonna say perfect. I know I said perfect, but I would feel better about that. But if the trends continue declining enrollment, you're going to get to a point where it does not make sense to have schools open the way they are. That's what I'm trying to prepare people for. I've got to look at the data. The reality is, over the last 10 years, our enrollment has gradually decreased every single year in Ottawa County schools. And since it's gradually decreasing, you have to look at it and project it out. And when I project that trend out, there is no need for a 2-model system in Ottawa County and in the city of Prattville. There are real concerns with enrollment numbers at Ottawaville and even Billingsley to a certain degree. The only community that is growing is Marbury. But again, I'll challenge this as well. If Marbury's the only community growing and everyone else is not, but I don't have the money to access additional building renovations in Marbury, then I'm going to have to redraw lines to ease the burden out there to bring kids back to Prattville. That's our reality, guys. And that's what I keep saying to everybody is, I'm not asking you to vote yes. I'm not asking you to vote no. I'm asking you to listen to the data, because there's a lot of things I've shared that I probably politically should not, but I'm fundamentally against that. I fundamentally believe you need transparency, you need full disclosure, you need us telling the truth, and that's what we're doing, okay? So that's why that's on there. Which schools would close? I have no idea. I have no idea. We would look at it through a very objective lens. We would look at it through enrollment. We would look at, if we're running, I don't know, $1.5 million short at the end of the year on our budget, which school could close off, protect teacher jobs, protect staff jobs, but yet save enough money where we don't continue going home. That would be the decision. And I'll challenge that with this. That's the decision that every business in America makes when their revenue is not enough to cover expenses. You cut expenses. Our expense is the buildings and our people. Like, that's our major expenses, right? So what options do you have? I'm not laying off people. I'm going to do my very best to protect our jobs. The only other thing I could cut in that scenario would be buildings. And I'll say this too. Any building that we cut or close, a school that we closed, at that point we would probably look at selling it, because the whole point of it is to reimburse your funds at the end to protect, okay? All right, reduce school athletics and fine arts supplements or support. I get the blowback on that one. Well, most of our sports and bands self-funds at each other. They do. Families fundraise a lot. Again, I've got 5 kids in the system. I feel like all we do is raise funds sometimes. But what I'm talking about is the supplements to pay for the coaches and the sponsors for the programs. I am very proud to say that we did overhaul the entire coach and supplement layout, and we added, for the first time ever, fine art supplements. We have supplements in our district for choir. We have supplements in our district for, we expanded the band supplements. We have supplements for theater. That's never occurred. Any supplement that was paid before came out of the school's general fund. Well, you can imagine the problem that caused when one school had the money to do it, but nobody else did. I'm seeing more fine art programs get kicked off on campuses than I've ever seen before, because we're able to reward our staff members who want to stay after school and do the job. That's awesome. But all of that comes out of local dollars, these dollars. So I lived in the time, and I understand it now, and I'm not taking a shot, I get it. First year I was at Marbury, we made playoffs. Let me rephrase that. The first year that we made playoffs, because I coached for a while and didn't make playoffs. I'll never forget, after the year, I got called in to the office, and I was told, hey, great year. I said, thank you, I appreciate it. They said, well, I hate to tell you, but your supplement is gonna get cut this year. I'm like, how is my supplement getting cut when we made playoffs? Well, if you're familiar with Watauga County, that was about the time of proration. They had to cut expenses because we didn't have the money. I coached at a time where it was expected for coaches to coach one sport and get a supplement, partial supplement, and coach another sport for free. Guys, you can imagine how hard that is to hire people at that time. So we did overhaul our coaching supplements. I have no shame in telling everyone that I have high expectations for our programs. They're all paid at the top 5 to 10% in their classification. I'm expecting things to get much better athletically. But that being said, that comes out of local dollars. And if I'm having to make cuts, that's why that's up there is, again, that would be an area I'd have to look at because it is a large percentage of the money that we have left is going to supplements. All right, closed second chance alternative program. Guys, we've made changes with the program since I've been hired. We added in the early release program. We've added in some other things. I'll be the first to admit, we're trying to streamline that process there. But here's what people don't understand. Second chance is locally funded. Now, we pull units from schools, Prattville High School mainly, Marbury High School. We pull units from schools that they earn and send them to second chance. If I'm facing a dilemma of shutting a school, and I met with our alternative school staff, they understand why this is up there. If it comes down to, hey, you're $1 million short, and to get back on budget, the easiest thing to do is close alternative school, then that's what I'll do. I'll have to close the alternative school. Now, I would be able to move our staff members back to base schools, but that causes a problem because what do you do with students that make a bad choice, and what do you do with them? Well, you'd have to suspend them. That means they're going home without any instruction. That's why second chance is up there. It's locally funded. I want people to understand that. We do get a few grants that help with the cost, but again, it's mainly locally funded. This fourth bullet is probably the most I hate to say that. It's caused the most discussion. I'll say that. I'm very proud of I'm very proud of the free breakfast and lunch program, guys. I'm very proud of that. We were able to remove the stigma of someone being a free lunch kid or a reduced lunch kid. I'm very proud of that program. That program benefits every kid in this county. Again, I've said this a few times. I got 5 kids in the system, and it's nice not having to write a check for them to eat lunch. But when I taught economics at Marbury High School, some of my students will tell you there was a lesson on there that says there's no such thing as a free lunch. That applies to this program. The program is free from the federal government. The fallout is not, okay? So, let me explain that. When we did the program, that was the first decision I made as superintendent. It was a new program. There wasn't a lot known about it, okay? The state, when we were talking to them, said, look, as long as you use this multiplier, it was 1.6 multiplier, we think everything's gonna be okay. Now I'm not trying to over-explain something, but I think it's important you know. If you remember before that program, everybody in the county was asked to fill out free and reduced forms. Those forms tie into your federal funding for SPED and for title funds, okay? The multiplier that I just mentioned helps make sure that you're gonna get the same amount of funding. Long story short, when we opened up school this year, we noticed that our SPED funding was cut some. When I inquired at the state, it was because the forms were not done, which we were told don't do them. And I'm not throwing them under the bus because this stuff comes from the federal government. But long story short, the program caused us to be several $100,000 short with SPED funding. Obviously, I'm not cutting SPED funding. We had to use local dollars to offset the cost. So that was a cost of the CEP program. The other cost was this. It's our understanding that we have to serve any schools that qualify for Title I funding. I knew that before we signed up on the program. So now, I believe it's Marbury High School has never qualified for title funding. Now they do. In reality, what that did was it removed some federal funding from Otago and Billingsley because the pie didn't get bigger, just the way you split the pieces of the pie up got changed. We offset the losses that those two schools felt with local dollars. So why is that up there? The program's free, but some of the fallout has not been free, and we've had to make it up with local dollars. Again, I'm not saying these cuts are going to occur. All I'm saying is I want our people to know if I have to make cuts, these are the main expenses, and these are where you may see some cuts. All right, decreased career tech funding. This has been probably the most eye-opening thing for our people in all of our community meetings. Career tech funding, we do receive some federal, some state. I mean, we do receive some. But the reality is, I think Career Tech Center has 18 teachers. 10 of them come from Prattville High School's units. Can't remember if it's 1 or 2 comes from Marbury High School. 2 units from Marbury High School. So we fund 6 of the 18 teachers. Let me back up and say that differently. We're able to find dollars for 6 of them, but Marbury High School and Prattville High School fund the other 12. Now, the justification's always been, well, every kid in the county is going to benefit from it, and Prattville can send kids all day long. And I agree with that. But how much different do those 2 campuses look if we had local units, funded local units? If I could locally fund the Career Tech Center units, or a portion of them, and send those units back to the base schools, you're talking about a game changer. You're talking about class sizes reducing. I hear that a lot about Prattville High School. My child's in a class with 30 kids. I get it. It would not be 30 kids if 10 units were not going to the Career Tech Center. That's nobody's fault. That's just, you have to make those kind of decisions when you're so limited on what you can do with local dollars. So I didn't set it up that way, but I haven't changed it, and I'm not going to change it because that benefits all kids, but it does limit what you can do on those campuses. All right, eliminate pre-K funding. Again, we are all about pre-K. I think that's a very valuable tool for our families, kids, get them in school, get them going early. The reality is the state funds about 80% of it. The other 20% comes out of our local dollars. Lastly, employee layoffs. Obviously, if they're an employee that's paid for with state dollars, that would not be affected, but we are able to locally fund some units. I'll just go back to this. If you locally fund 1 unit, it's $100,000. So you can imagine what that scale looks like. If I'm having to find $1 million and there's 10 locally funded units, that's a possibility of getting cut. So it's been kind of awkward to have to end on that slide in all 4 counties, or excuse me, all 4 communities. But we wanted to take a point and take some time and explain, not, hey, vote this way or vote that way. But I think the citizens deserve to know why we're looking at this. And again, we understand the sensitive nature of asking people to pay more property tax. So some of you sent in some questions. Ms. Thomas is going to come up. Have no idea what questions they are, and we're about to see what we got. Again, if I don't know the answer, I assure you I'll get your name, and I will find the answer. Ms. Thomas will as well. We'll call you back individually. Hopefully I'm not stumped.
All right, just 2.
Okay.
All right, so one joined us from YouTube. She's a Billingsley parent, so you may want to go back to the enrollment slide.
Okay.
My question is, are these numbers combined with the online students?
Great question.
Also, kindergarten has 26 students in 1 class, again
Yep.
at Billingsley, so how is enrollment down altogether?
Yes, all right, great question, thank you, and I did miss that. At the very bottom down here, Atauga Virtual Academy, okay, that became its own separate school. Next year, they will receive funding for teacher units. A lot of our schools, I don't know the exact number from Billingsley, some students, let me rephrase that, every school lost some kids to that, but at least the kids stayed in Atauga County. So Billingsley did lose some kids to virtual. What was the other question? Enrollment? Okay, excuse me.
Kindergarten enrollment is at 26, how is it down?
How's overall enrollment down? All right, so kindergarten enrollment went up, but when you look at some of the other grades, you had people leave out, you had some people go to homeschool or virtual school or things like that. So that's how it would be. But Billingsley, according to this, is actually up 21 students. Now, a lot of that going up is your kindergartner situation that you were discussing. I believe we hired a 3rd unit the other night, Tuesday night.
Starts Tuesday.
Yeah, there you go. So that was, thank you for asking that, because that's a prime example of what we're talking about. We knew those sizes were going to be 18 to 20. We open up the first day of school and there's 25, 26 kids. We all know you cannot run a kindergarten class with that many students in it. but the reality is, where do those funds come from? It had to come from our local dollars. Then the other side of that that's so hard is, you know, I feel really good about the hire that we're making, but in general terms, when you're having to hire teachers in August, September, October, obviously most teachers are not going to leave their previous district, and you're having to take shots on teachers that maybe have never taught before. Now, again, I feel very good about this hire we made, but that's a prime, and thank you for that, that's a prime example of what we're talking about.
All right, last but not least, do you have access to the information that states where Autauga County ranks in ad valorem taxes in the state?
Do I have access to the information?
The data. So that is linked on our website where they can
Okay,
see local rankings.
Yeah.
Of course they
And the rankings that Ms. Thomas was talking about comes from the Alabama Association of School Boards. Those rankings will be updated in the next few weeks because this is about the time of year where they do put them out. So that 128 is the current ranking. Obviously it's a new school year, so they'll have to redo some of that. I personally think that we're actually gonna go down because a lot of these funds, the ranking counted federal dollars that we no longer have. In Autauga County specifically, I believe it was about $7 million last year that was federal dollars that we don't have this year. And it might have been 8 actually. So I do expect us honestly to go further down than 128, but not knowing that for sure, I don't wanna, you know, put that out there that a ranking's different. But again, we're 128 based on the total ranking we have now. Any other questions, Ms. Thomas? Okay, well guys, look, I appreciate you tuning in. Those of you that are gonna watch later on, I appreciate you sticking out the time and watching with us. Guys, we're here to answer your questions. I'm not here again to tell you yes, no. I'm here to put out the information. If there's something that you think about that you want us to answer, email me or Ms. Thomas. We'll reach back out to you individually. I gotta say thank you to all our parents and community members. Even, I've had some to come up to me and say, hey, I'm voting no, but, you know, I appreciate y'all being so transparent. Guys, that's what it's all about. At the end of the day, the board and I share one vision, and that's this. We're gonna do what the Autauga County residents tell us to do in November. So we appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate all that you're doing for our kids and communities. I appreciate your support, and I just encourage you to vote, yes or no, November 5th. Thank you.